You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is director Peter Hutchings. And we're going to talk about his brand new, oh, it's such a lovely movie. I really enjoyed it. The film is entitled Which Brings Me to You. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Hey Jen, it's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. We were just talking before we went on the air, is that you were on my show back in January of 2019. So
19.
5 years ago, about the same time, same date,
Wow,
almost amazing.
that's right. That's yeah.
Isn't that funny? When I went back and
Yeah,
looked, when I was reading your bio, I go, oh, he's been on my show before. And that was for Then Came You, which I thought was also adorable at that time too. You must have something
thank you.
about you in the title. Is this something that's a prerequisite for you?
You know, you're not the first person to point this out. I'm gonna have to think about that. Actually, neither of those titles were for me, which brings me to you is the title of the book that this
Mhm.
movie is based on. Um, and uh, and then came you was actually the title was changed when the distributor came on. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, it actually went through a few names, but when we shot it, it was called Departures.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
also an interesting title too. But I think Then Came
Yeah.
You really works well too with it.
Yes, it
Sure.
does.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that brings me to you. Which brings me to you.
Yeah.
I just love, a lot of these kinds of movies. I don't know. I don't know if it's really, I guess it would be in the rom-com realm. I guess that's what was the genre that we would put this movie into. And so many of them are, can be so sappy and, not that interesting sometimes, or they're very formulaic. This is not. This is just, oh my God, I'm so in love with Lucy Hale.
You and me both. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, every time she's on the screen, it just pops and everything. And Nate Wolff is also act really wonderful too in this film, and they
Yeah.
really play well together and have wonderful chemistry. But it's such an wonderful, interesting concept on this film. So why don't you tell our audience what which brings me to you is all about, so they'll know what we're talking about when we discuss this wonderful movie.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So it's about these two romantic burnouts, Will and Jane, who meet at a wedding. They're instantly attracted to each other, and they just go for it. They hook up in the coat closet. It goes really, really poorly. And you expect that they're never going to see each other again, but instead they end up spending the rest of the day talking to each other and telling each other about their past romances, the ups and downs, the first loves and heartbreaks. And on the way they start to wonder whether this might be the start of something new and exciting.
There's something about exposing yourself to someone that you may
Yeah,
think you may never see again, and you're
right.
willing to open yourself up and become raw, which they do in this film. I mean, there's a lot of, each one of them have had numerous really interesting relationships. And that premise is so interesting because when we think there might be a possibility in a relationship, then we kind of put our best foot forward. We don't let people know too much about ourselves.
Right.
So this is a really fascinating concept in this movie.
Yeah. 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 There's a line before we kind of like break into the second act where he's like, it's not like we're ever going to see each other again.
Right.
And you're right. That kind of sets the stage for them to, okay, there's almost a certain anonymity there. But,
Mhm.
but it's through that process. There's a line in the movie where Nat says to her, "What do you do when you've told someone how messed up you are and they don't run for the hills?" And
Yeah.
that's part of what's unique about this relationship and that sets it apart from these past failed relationships that they've had is and that's part of what I really loved about this story is that it brings to life that idea of of uh of deep communication with a partner of how to be completely accepting of the other and of yourself, how that allows you to accept yourself as well,
Yeah.
and how to listen deeply. to
Mm,
somebody. That's so rare
it is.
in relationships these days. And so that was something I was really excited to explore in this movie and share with an audience.
It was, it's about going deep, you know,
Yeah,
really going deep, and people are afraid to do that nowadays too. And the other part
yeah,
too, you're right. I mean, I say it all the time. You need to love yourself first before you can love someone else. You need to love the warts and all. We all have, good, bad, and indifferent parts of ourselves, obviously, right?
yeah,
None of us is what we call perfect. And I don't know what that would be, but
right.
loving ourselves and all of our insecurities and everything else that goes with it. You can't love someone else until you can embrace yourself in that wonderful way. And that's what these characters do in their process together. I think,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
processing, in a way, not realizing that that's what they were going to do, but they are discovering more about themselves by talking about those past relationships. Wouldn't you agree with
yeah,
that?
yeah, really well said. And the self-acceptance and the self-love is so important. And part of what I like about this story is that it shows how valuable a safe relationship can be for helping us grow in
Mhm.
self-acceptance and self-love.
Yeah.
That when we're in an environment with someone that you can expose yourself to in all of those ways that you don't have to try and look perfect in front of, that it inspires you to accept yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And you're real. You're being real. You're being
Yeah,
authentic. Your authentic self. And
yeah, yeah.
and that's what they both do. What's interesting though, well, let's talk about what, what I mean, obviously this script is wonderful and it's a wonderful film, but what did attract you to it?
Yeah, so I mean, I read the script years ago, and it was actually set up somewhere else, already. And so I asked Brian Keaty, who's in development at BCDF Pictures, production company that I've worked with several times, if he could kind of just keep an eye on it. And by this serendipity, he happened to a few years later be working with the book author Juliana Baggett on another project of hers, and she just told him, without knowing any of that context, she said, by the way, this script based on a book of mine has just become available if you want to check it out. And he's like, yeah, I've heard about that. I'd love to. And so we were able to get the option of that. And I had just come off of shooting my last movie, another romantic comedy called The Hating Game, starring
Yes.
Lucy Hale.
Yes.
And Lucy and I were looking for something to do together. And so I had just come on this. I sent her the script. She loved it, and we were kind of off and running. But what I really connected with, I mean, first of all, I just, I fell for these characters. I fell in love with these characters. They're funny, and they're charming, and they're messy, and
Yeah.
they're real. And I just wanted to spend time with them. And by the time I got to the end of the story, which just flew by for me, the feeling that I was left with after the end of the movie, the emotion that I was in, I told myself, um, if I could make a movie and help make people feel this way, we'd have something really special on our hands. So it really all started with that. It was kind of starting, and then that carried through with the way that we made the movie. I was always thinking about the ending of the movie. I can't remember who it was, but a famous movie studio boss once said there are two halves to a movie. There's the ending and everything else. And I really believe that, it's like in a movie like this, everything kind of comes down to that. I won't give anything away, of course, but I hope that people, watch the movie and leave with a sense of uh, of hope for themselves, that they might be able to let go of some of the baggage that they're carrying, and you take that leap of faith into the future,
Mhm.
and maybe a bit of hope for their own relationships that they have. So yeah, so there was a lot that drew me into this.
Yeah. Well, you have uh, you can tell this movie was lovingly made. You can feel it.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. No, I
It,
say
it,
that
it
in
really
all
was.
honesty. Yeah, you can feel it when you're watching it. When you're just the way that the camera watches these two, wonderful characters and all the supporting cast is also,
Yeah.
just wonderful. Each person that's in these relationships with these people. And I love how, the back and forth between them, but you can feel it's just lovingly made. It's a wonderful movie. I was just drawn into it. And I see a lot of movies and I'm not always that drawn into them, you know. And you know how
That's
you can
just,
get jaded when you see a lot of films after a
yeah.
while too,
Yeah.
so we all can be after a while. But this one really it did it. You just felt the love in the film and then the love of these characters, the way it was shot, and the way you portrayed them in this movie was just really quite beautiful. So
Thank you.
you have a I think you have a nice hit on your hands here.
Oh, thanks. Thank
I
you.
really do. You're welcome. You're welcome. I say this in all honesty because it's really hard to do this genre and do it well without falling into the traps that are there all the time. Like we've seen that a million
Yeah.
trillion times. This one we haven't seen before, and that's what makes
Yeah.
it unique and different. So
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I have
you're
to give a
welcome.
shout out there when we talk about how the movie is shot to our wonderful cinematographer, Karina Silva.
Yes.
She's just such an enormous talent and her team, she also operates. So, she's always right there with the actors and we talked about what you're talking about, what you just mentioned. It was really important to us of for a movie that thematizes listening and listening well, how
Mhm.
could the camera do that? How could we be in that state of compassionate listening of these characters as they go on their journey? And so that was important to us. So I'm glad that that came across.
Oh, it did. It did. Very much did. Yeah. And the camera again loves Lucy Hale's face and Nat. It's a Nat
Yeah,
also, and
yeah,
they play well together.
yeah.
So where did you shoot this? I think it took place on Long Island, right? Is that where you shot it too?
So we shot it in New Jersey along the North Shore there in Monmouth County.
Oh, okay. I'm from New Jersey originally, so
Is that right?
yeah.
Whereabouts?
Mountain Lakes near Morristown, up north.
Okay, yeah,
But used to go to the shore all the time, obviously. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so our kind of epicenter was Red Bank, and
Okay.
then we branched out from there up to Atlantic Highlands and Keensburg and down to Asbury Park. And
Wow.
what as soon as I came on, I knew I wanted to figure out where I was shooting this movie. So I went for a bunch of long drives just on my own. And when I drove through Monmouth County, I just, the movie kind of came alive to
Hmm.
me in these locations. It's so important to look. The locations are the third character in this story. There are a lot of locations,
Yeah.
and I really wanted to find a place that had, a sense of history, um, that would match the history of these characters, right? These two characters that are weighed down by their history and their baggage of the past. And so I wanted to set set that against, um, it was important to me to be near the shore, to be near
Hmm.
the water,
Yes.
and uh, and so I was really, just so happy to be able to find everything that I needed within a pretty small radius.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's
To find
important when
that.
you're
Yeah.
shooting. We had 38 locations and we shot it in 22 days.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you just think about how much we were constantly moving, and yeah, it was
Yes.
a big operation. It was a well-oiled machine.
I would say it would have to be to do that many scenes in that many days, for
Yeah,
sure. It would have to be. I've always been a big, from the time I can remember, sit and watch through all the credits. I have to tell people that when I go to the movies with them, well, I watch the credits. So if you need to get up, you go ahead, but I'll see you out in the lobby later. And one of the reasons I always like to sit through the credits is to see where it's been filmed. I'm always
yeah,
curious about where the
yeah,
movie's been filmed. And this one, I mean, again, so it was
yeah.
really well done in that respect too. Great shots
Thank you.
of the shore and the ocean and all of the other places too. What was other than shooting 38 scenes in 22 days, what was the most difficult part of the shoot?
Well, I mean, we had our challenges along the way. We had some, we didn't get lucky always with the weather. Some rain that made us really have to rethink some things, and we lost some with 38 locations. It's there's going to be some shakeups, and so we lost a couple locations like 2 days before we had to shoot there. So there was a lot of behind the scenes scrambling, and then of course you know on set you know, keep things as calm as possible, so the actors never know about any of the the drama that's going on. It's like a duck paddling, it's like there's a lot going on beneath the surface, and then on set a sanctuary. But one of
Nice.
the real challenges was that we have some of these sequences that take place at sunrise or sunset, and long sequences in the movie that we actually have to shoot on different days. So first of all, we had some bad luck with the weather, but we had some really good luck with the weather also, because that was the fact that there's some of those scenes that are stitched together that
Okay.
look like they're shot at the same time, but they were shot over 2 weeks at sometimes at sunset and sun. Anyway, that was a big part of the planning. So we'd be locked into, okay, we need to get to this scene by you know 5 o'clock in order to be set up and shooting at magic hour, which is that really beautiful part of the sunset where everything just glows. And we had a lot of material that in this 45-minute period. So when we were shooting those days, we were just running around. It felt like we were making a student film, and it was just a great to feel that spirit and that energy. There's some scenes where the actors are running and we were like 2 steps in front of them running, and there was a real excitement around that. It
That's
actually, I think, brought something to the
yeah.
energy of those scenes.
Yeah, actually, it would, I would think for sure. And you're right. Now, what time of year did you film this? Because they are on the ocean. It seemed like, and she's wearing a little skimpy dress, so I was hoping it wasn't cold.
I'm telling you, we shot it in September,
Okay.
September into October, and
Okay.
so it started to get
A
a
little
little
chilly.
chilly,
Yeah.
and but it just goes to show Lucy and Nat are such pros, and they're so dedicated. They both love making movies so much. It's really infectious, and the three of us every day we're just pinching ourselves that we get to do this, and we get to tell a great story that could mean so much to people. And but I think it was October when Nat had to go
Oh, you didn't film
into the
that early,
sound,
huh?
into the bay.
Yeah.
um and yeah, and Karina, our cinematographer, is also the camera operator, in her wetsuit, just a total trooper right in
That's
there with them. Yeah.
that's great. That's so great.
Yeah.
So how did you already, you said you and Lucy were looking for something else to do
Yeah.
after you did the hating game together. So you already had her in mind when you were looking at this script, I take it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nat I've known for over 10 years. My first movie that I did, I was the director's assistant on to Bruce Beresford, the great Bruce Beresford, who
Oh,
directed
yes. Yeah.
Driving Miss Daisy and Tender Mercies, and he did this lovely movie called Peace, Love, and Misunderstanding with Jane Fonda and Catherine Keener, and it was Elizabeth Olsen's first movie, and it was Nat Wolff's first movie.
Oh,
So I've
wow.
known Nat for go way back, and we've wanted to work together for years, and this was just the perfect opportunity. I knew how much he was going to bring. I've been watching his career, and just so impressed with with the choices that he's made. And I saw him do a play in New York. It's an adaptation of kind of a modern update of The Seagull.
Oh, wow.
And he was so good. He's so present and he cares so much about the work. And so I just knew he was going to be perfect for Will. So yeah, and the two of them actually they knew each other a little bit beforehand, which goes a long way.
Oh, that's good.
And
Isn't
then
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, and then we spent a lot of time in pre-production, the three of us working together, workshopping the script. It was really important to us in a movie that thematizes authenticity
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for it to be as authentic as possible. We wanted to have this balance. We want the movie to be really fun and entertaining, but also real and grounded and human and something that people could see themselves in and connect with. And the three of us knew that the more specific you are, the more universal it becomes. So we spent a lot of time developing the characters. I wanted for the two of them to have a real sense of ownership over the characters, so that when we came on to the set, whether we were shooting, no matter, because we obviously it's very rare to be able to shoot a movie in order,
Right.
shooting out of order. So I wanted them to know these characters inside out and be able to find themselves in them. And so we spent a lot of time building their relationship, building the characters, and just making sure that there were no false notes. And that really, on a movie where we were running around and moving at such a fast pace, that that prep went such a long way.
Mm-hmm. It really did. And you're right. There's no false notes when you're watching this. And so the chemistry between them, because they knew each other, was that just sort of a natural transition for them to develop this chemistry on screen, or did it take more of that workshopping to develop that?
I think that the time that we spent together in pre-production um, really paid dividends,
Mm-hmm.
because the first day of shooting, the second scene that we did was the two of them making out in the coat closet. So I really threw them into the deep end.
Yes. What was the first
And
scene that you
the
did?
first scene was an early scene of them walking, kind of a walk and talk on the pier. The scene with the cat, not to give anything away, but
Okay. No, we don't want to give anything away. Not
yeah,
at
yeah.
all, at all. Wow.
There's some nice twists in the movie, and yeah, we had a lot of fun making it. Like you're saying, it was a lot of love in making it. It was a real special experience, and we're so excited to share it with the
Doesn't
world.
that make a difference? When
It
you're giving so
it
much of your life to something
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
many years of it doesn't have that, then what's the point, right?
yeah. And part of that is you get, there's some things that are out of your hands, but it's, personally, it's really, really important to me to foster an environment on set, um, from the word go, that's calm
Right, right.
and that's creative and that's friendly and open and inviting. You hear these stories about sometimes, films that are considered masterpieces where it was just a miserable time shooting it. And like you're saying, this is our life. This is
Yeah.
our life. And not only is that it, but I feel like it comes across in the work
Mm-hmm.
that
Yes.
that when, that even if it's not at a conscious level, I think that that's imprinted on
Mm-hmm.
the work. And so, try and I think sometimes in filmmaking, people tell themselves that the end justifies the means.
Mm,
And so you can kind of be mean or rude or whatever because it's in service of this work. And, I'm more of the philosophy of Gandhi and Martin Luther King that the end is in the means.
mm. Well, it's beautiful. And you know what? I'm sure it makes more people want to work with you as a director because of your creating that kind of environment to work with. You hear stories about some of these directors, very well known, very famous directors who've done some brilliant films who just apparently were terrors on the set,
Yeah.
and not really great to work for, but yet they did get something, out of these actors. But you kind of get a lot of them are just like shell shocked afterwards from
Yeah.
the experience. So you hear those stories, and so to have someone who's wants to create this loving, peaceful environment on the set says a whole lot. So Peter, and the proof is in the pudding. You've created just a beautiful, lovely film. Everybody, where can people see? Which brings me to you.
So it'll be coming out in theaters January 19th.
And
So people can go out with you know with their friends and family and go see it in theaters. So that'll be January 19th. And then after that, once the movie comes out in theaters, then they'll announce a release date for the VOD, for the video on demand. It'll come out not too long after. So video on demand, so all the rental platforms, Apple and Amazon and all of that. So
Great.
I'm looking forward to
Everybody's,
people finding
yes,
the movie.
yes. Then everybody seek it out, which brings me to you. A great movie, and Valentine's Day will be coming up shortly. So this will
Yes.
be a nice romantic movie to take a date to go see for sure. And Peter, I look forward to having you back on the show with your next film. Let's not make it 5 years. Hopefully it's shorter than that. So
Sounds
thank you
good.
so much. I wish you much success with this wonderful film, which brings me to you. I'm going to keep saying that title. Thank
Thanks
you
so
so
much, Jan.
much.
Thanks for having me on. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. Thank you. Bye bye.
All right.